Don't ever let somebody tell you can't do something. You gotta dream. You gotta protect it. You want something, go get it.
What's up, guys? Jay Bandy here with the For the Love podcast, episode 25. I'm here with a buddy of mine who I've actually known for quite a while, kept in touch for a long time, the Real Frii. What's up?
What's going on, man?
So, I met the Real Frii, Christopher as I know him. I met him about probably almost 14 years ago, and
Wow.
yeah, long time. If you really think about it, it's wild, dude, because I still feel kind of young. You don't realize, like, when people say to you, like, yo, time flies so fast. That shit flies, bro.
Flies. Dang. Makes you look old, man.
It's weird because, yeah, right. It makes you look at it and say, damn, how much time flew by. And if you're not, to be honest, if you're not acknowledging that and you don't look at that, you will waste a lot of time in your life, and you won't be able to really take advantage of that. So really slow down and try to acknowledge time. But yeah, so we both met in the same place, and now we're in totally separate places. So we met in the police academy where he was an officer for a little while. How many years?
7.
7 years. And I have a lot of respect for him because he got to a point where I'm guessing he just knew that it wasn't something that he wanted to do for his life, and he departed from there, which I'm sure was a hard decision. So what was that about?
That was it was like the culmination of a lot of nights. We worked the midnight shift for a long time. A lot of nights, like, just unbeknown to most people and known to a super small group of people, me spending nights in that patrol car actually crying, bro.
I don't doubt it.
And actually it was crazy because at one point I remember being like parked side by side somebody else, Finch, and I was so angry and venting just about like not being happy.
Yeah.
That how people talk with their hands and what I was so violently venting and talking that the patrol car was rocking. Apparently visibly enough from the outside that a sergeant supervisor drove by, pulled up and was like, "Is everything okay here?" Like he thought it was an altercation.
Right.
So like, that's one, night that sticks out in my head. And eventually, just probably what comes through the mind of anybody who has a really stable job and it's paying the bills and they're thinking about taking a leap and, jumping towards something that they're passionate about. And if you have a family, like these are things that, you worry about. Having a family, being able to still pay the bills, all that stuff. So what kind of became like the deciding factor, or not deciding factor, but what made the decision, that hard decision, real easy was God just really showing me the spiritual suicide that was happening inside, and how in an instant, because of the job we do and because of the weapon we keep on our hip all the time, that's how people end up committing suicide. Is before they have that physical death, they've died a long time ago on the inside.
You're right.
So it's like God gave me that snapshot, like of a potential future. Yeah. Not to say that was gonna happen. I never, felt like doing that or taking my life or something, but He was just showing me how spiritually unhappy and at unrest I was. Right. And like, you can keep rolling the dice if you want, week after week, month after month, year after year, and doing this, and you never know of what state, mentally that's going to bring you to. And it was like, hey man, if I got to struggle living in a box or struggle feeding myself or feeding my kids, I'd rather do that than run the risk of my kids having a dad who's dead on the inside and no use to them at all.
That's
like point. Now my kids get to see me smile, happy. On a holiday or their birthday or the summer, we want to go somewhere to, I'm not stuck having to, always be at that place at the department, for a parade or holiday, man. It's like.
Yeah, I mean, I think people don't understand the sacrifice that's really comes with that job. I think that it does mentally, physically beat the piss out of people, and you have to be really strong to deal with that for a long period of time. And now, not only 20 years, but now they want to extend it to 25, which is just even worse. So I totally understand where you come from, and it's interesting because I think a lot of people that do this job feel that way at some point in time. But like you said, they can't get away from the money. They can't get away from the stress of the finances and all that stuff. So when you made that decision, it was more of a spiritual decision for you?
Yeah. It was definitely more of a spiritual one. And I was like, my passion for, young people has always been there. So even before being a cop, I was a child development specialist. I work with kids, at-risk youth and all that kind of thing. I never grew up having like an aspiration to be a cop or anything.
It's interesting.
And where that how I kind of ended up transitioning from working with youth and into being a cop was my family expanding and growing. And anybody who works with youth or in human service knows there's really no money in that unless you got a bunch of alphabets at the end of your name and letters. So with my family growing and the need to make more money, somebody kind of just pitched the idea out there to me like, hey, the police department's hiring, you could still get to work with people. Yeah. And like they knew I genuinely love people. So, and I could make good money helping people. And I figured, hey, it could be another way I could maybe help inner city youth, at-risk youth, I thought. And then you fast forward, I realized by the time Boys in Blue cross at-risk youth, it's kind of too late. When I arrive on scene,
you're right.
So, you're and right. I remember having moments like that, feeling that conflict of like looking at a young teenage kid in my backseat of handcuffs going, man, I wish I could have got to you like a week ago or a month ago or, because that was my passion, so.
Yeah. And I think people don't understand that, like you said, it's a little too late. And as much as they want us to be so community driven and so community connected, you can't do that when you're going call to call to call. So as much as you want to help that kid, and maybe you do, maybe you grab his phone number or something to try to help him. When do you have the time to do that? Yeah.
I actually remember there being a time where I was on, it was like like this, a teenage female who was a habitual runaway. Yeah. So like their mom's constantly calling the police department because the kid was running away. So found where the kid was, brought him back to their mom. Actually, it was their grandmother. And I remember sitting on the sofa and I'm like, just chopping it up, small talk with the kid. And, using all my, child development skills and, trying to, just kind of just get through them and empathize, whatever. And I was in heaven in that moment, like, uniform and all. Like at that moment though, I was connecting with the kid. They were opening up, talking to me. And I was probably, on that call for maybe 45 minutes. And, when you're going from like call to call, that's too long, like there's a ton of backed up calls for you to go to. And I remember the dispatcher, coming in on the radio and asking me, hey, Elliot, you finished with that kid yet? And I was like,
right.
Yeah, like, like I gotta go now. The other long list of calls are calling, and it's like, here we go again. This job pulling me from what I really want to be doing. Yeah.
Well, that's what's hard because people look at us and want us to be their savior for everything. And as much as like it's ironic because you have a guy like you who want to actually do that.
Would want to do that.
You know what I mean? You're like, fuck, I wanted to do that. Excuse my language. But I'm like, when do you? It's just not possible these days. It's just not possible. And it's ironic that you went through that because I think a lot of people don't see it from that perspective. Now, when you say you weren't happy inside, what was it that was causing the unhappiness? Was it the job? Was it things on the job? Was it you knowing that you were meant for more?
It was probably all of that combined, man. And I think that's what made kind of like more of those, me violently venting and shaking the police car nights occur like that. I mean, there was a night, man, I walked in to roll call just utterly disheveled, like tears, snot tears, like that. Walked into roll call like that, and thank God for a shift commander with some freaking half a sense. Took one look at me and was like, hell no, you're not. They're like, you're not coming to work today. So it was like a combination of like this kind of spiritual death happening inside, unhappiness. I had that obviously impacting home life, and of course that being stressful. I had then I had the actual department connected stuff where there was a season of maybe 8 months that I was working inside, like working in lockup. And I remember there being like 1 month, like in a single month, I was like I had like 3 like write-ups on me, like supervisors sending me to the chief's office to for like stupid stuff, and for me, one person could look at that just in and of itself and kind of like tunnel vision and zeroed in on that and get like pissed off and angry with that. And for me though, it was kind of like I was looking at it like omens. Like this is a sign. Signs, like, cause I'm a good dude. I do my job well. Like I have like commendations, like certificate awards, like accolades of like my job as a cop and doing my job well, and like, so why is this happening to me? Like, why am I being attacked, like targeted like this? And to me, it was like, this is a sign. This is my sign that my God knows if I don't listen to his still calm voice inside of me telling me that it's time for me to leave, he's some way got to like put a match to my behind, like, and make this environment more uncomfortable. And that'll make me realize I got to get the hell out of here. So
that's wild that you say that, because it's interesting, because I've come to a spiritual realization in life that I feel like the world wants you to live a certain way. It wants you to be good. It wants you to live with love, care, and compassion. And what happens, just like you said, if you stayed on that same path of the PD or the same path that you were in, knowing that it was making you unhappy, nothing would have ever changed. You would have been confronted with the same stuff constantly. And what did you do to find happiness? You made a decision that was probably one of the hardest decisions ever to make. Something that you probably didn't even know if you really wanted. Like, you wanted it, but didn't know if it was going to be a good one. And it's very hard. And you did it, and because you didn't go down that same path all the time, the world rewarded you with happiness. And that's how I feel this world works. It's wild.
No, absolutely, man. I mean, it's like being intentional about being happy. Like, I think a lot of people think happiness is like luck. Like, one day I'm gonna win the lotto and I'm gonna be happy, or whatever it is. Like, great. But like, you have to want to be happy and then actually be happy on purpose. It's like that's like right. So I tell
real. People every day that it's something that you have to work on every day. You're gonna have your down days, and everybody does.
Absolutely.
But you have to look at the big picture. You have to look at what drives you, know how you feel when you're happy, and say, okay, today's a down day. You have to acknowledge your life. People don't want to acknowledge anything. Take responsibility for your emotions, your actions, all these things.
It's hard. It's hard work.
But with you, man, I think we always kind of had a little cool connection, because I don't know what it is, but like, I'm always very, very close connected with creativity. And because I was doing music, DJ, and stuff like that, we had a little connection there. And you always were doing your thing. Now, when did that creativity come about in your life?
Well, I always was creative. As a kid, I was always into sketching and graffiti. There's like this time my mom tells a story how like she when she knew she had to move us out of New Haven and like move all the way like as a kid like this middle part of my childhood, like I grew up in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and like left New Haven for like a stint, like a 5-6 years.
Yep.
And she always says like it was because she saw like this like kind of spirit of like a street hustler in me at a young age, and she was like afraid that was gonna like manifest into like
take you to the streets,
some like inner city drug dealer or something. But what it was I had a teenage mom. I was being raised by my grandmother, and I was going to school. My mom didn't know anything about registering her kid for school and things like registering for like free or reduced lunch, that kind of deal. And my older great grandma, of course, didn't know either. So what was happening was I was an inner city kid going to school every day without lunch. And even though I probably would have qualified for free lunch, nobody
knew how to
did that due diligence or paperwork, whatever. So, my teenage mom, like she dropped the ball there, whatever. So what I would do at school is I would go to school with like a fistful of like permanent markers, and I would draw Sesame Street character designs on people's clothes, kids' clothes, and they would give me lunch money. I think lunch back then, for it was like 65 cents or whatever.
Yeah.
And literally, man, I had kids giving me enough money, man, for me to get lunch.
Smart.
Wow. So, I was creative, all the way back then, but not creative. Like I wasn't into, making any music or, writing lyrics or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was just totally artistic.
When did that come about?
So that came from just, I always, growing up in inner city, loved music. I love listening to music.
Right.
I love listening to hip hop. But the actual like transition into, writing music stemmed from, again, the like artistic, drawing design part of me, where I wanted to like have my own like creative line, t-shirt line. And I was like, it's going to be, faith-based line, and, using all my, artwork or whatever. And I found like at my local church, there was this big talent show benefit. And I was like, well, a bunch of my target audience is going to be there. Young kids, young Christian kids. And I'm going to get on stage or be there, and I'm going to rock one of my designs that I just, created. So I only have one problem though. It's a talent show, not a fashion show.
Yeah.
And like the only way I'm gonna be able to get on stage is with a talent. So then I'm like the gears are turning in my head, and I'm like, well, I'll put some words together and write a little spoken word piece.
Okay.
Just so I could get up on stage and everybody can see my dope t-shirt, and then I'm gonna blow up.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. The story took a whole different turn.
Isn't it wild how that happens?
Like not one person after I got off stage asked me about my cool t-shirt.
That's wild.
Everybody wanted to know how long you been writing, how long you been doing poetry, and I'm like, this is my first time.
Yeah.
Yo, it was
That's
insane.
great.
And like literally like the same year was the year when like a few of the cops got together and went to New York to the Apollo.
Yeah.
And I was like, first time ever getting up on stage, like in the same year.
Yeah.
I'm now like on one of the like most world renowned stages.
That's sick.
There is, yo. It was crazy.
So let's get to that. Now, you've done some pretty wild things. And you made that decision to leave and find happiness, and you found it through your creativity.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love when people find their talents, because I don't think people do that often enough in this world. Some people go their whole life not even knowing. One thing I wanted to find out is your faith. When did that come about, and how did you know that you wanted to mesh that into your creativity?
Well, I mean, my faith was again something that I was raised in. Like I said, I was raised by my great grandmother to start with, and then when she got too old, I then went to my grandma's house, and then like I didn't actually live permanently with my actual biological mom until like 8th grade. So I had one kind of this old soul upbringing, and kind kind of, I'm talking about those grandparents you hear about that go to church 3-4 times a week, kind of deal. So that was like ingrained in me like as a little kid.
Okay.
And it probably was the only aspiration, like when kids think about in school or talk about, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up or things like that? Like the only thing that I ever even consciously like thought of doing in life was like sharing my faith. And I always just knew it wasn't going to be in a traditional way, like at like a pulpit or somewhere, even though I do that, I travel and speak at, conventions and churches and things like that. But I always just knew it would just be different. And I didn't know how. I didn't know how different. I always just felt it would be different, but I would share my faith still. So once the ideas for, being an entrepreneur or doing, what am I going to do? Once those ideas started to like, spin in my head, whether it was the clothing line, it was going to be, well, how can I blend my faith with clothing, So then once the clothing took a sharp turn and then it was like, oh, I guess I'm going to be a poet and a, hip hop artist. How can I take my faith and blend it with that, And so that's how that happened. It was something that was always, there.
Faith was always number one.
Faith always number one.
So now you take that, you blend that. You
better have faith doing that dangerous job on the street.
Absolutely, you gotta have some. That's the thing, and that's why I think people fall into bad places if you don't. You know what I mean? Especially like, to be quite honest, even myself, man. I knew I was meant for something more than just doing this job. Even though I have a lot of love for the job, I knew I had creativity that I was wasting. But the one thing that I never did was I never got away from it. There was times where I might have like took a break from the things that I love to do to try to put more effort into the job. And when I didn't see it come back to me in return, then I would go back to my hobbies that brought me a lot of love. And the only things that really turned my brain off, if you understand that. You know what I mean? There's certain things I do, like if I go to the gym or if I'm doing music, even now with the podcast, that I really actually love. It makes me feel happy. And when that happens, I'm not thinking about anything else.
Nothing.
I'm just so in the moment. It's wild. So now, how did you mesh the music in? You start writing, and how did you get involved in creating songs?
Yeah, the music. Yeah, because that's the other thing, and it's like that. That's this kind of subtle, like small gap between being on that stage at the talent show doing poetry, and then how do I end up, going from that to music? So I think behind the poetry was like music all along, because unbeknown to like anybody, that first spoken word piece that I did at the talent show, it was written to a beat, to music.
Oh, wow.
But I think because this was like, one, this is my first time getting in front of people and doing this ever. And two, because I just didn't have like the know-how of, things like when you take music to a place and like need to know all the audio things and connect and give people your, like, I was such a fish out of water, like babe in a sense, that I was like, you know what? I'm not going to use any music. I'm just going to just do this thing a cappella, spoken word kind of style thing. But there was like, this long love for hip hop, long love for music. So, I think I left that stage, and after seeing all the love and like the response, I was like, wow, I'm going to revisit the music thing. Like maybe I'm going to try this with music. And it was crazy because I did like I wrote one more just spoken word a cappella piece that I uploaded to YouTube. And so I'm like, I got this really dope support in like a totally faith-based environment. So let me upload it to the rest of the world and see kind of what's the vibe, And I remember that YouTube video's first comment. And to this day, I mean, the YouTube video is long gone now and not there. When I look back at it, I'm like, this is so horrible. But it's so long gone now. But it was the first comment and ever the only comment that I got on the video. And it was a comment from, I can only imagine, some super religious person. And their comment was, "This is not of God. You have the spirit of Cain." Bro, when I tell you, I had the wind knocked out of me.
Yeah.
I had the creative wind, the spiritual passion wind. I had everything that was driving me towards that and making me feel like this was a good direction to go and this was good. I had it like in an instant with one person's negative comment
That you didn't even know.
that I didn't even know. I don't even know who you are, but that's the vulnerability that you're in when you're that babe and you're just trying to take a small step into your own happiness. It could take just that one carefully, just perfect timingly placed negative comment, opinion from somebody else who doesn't see your vision, who doesn't share your passion, doesn't see, and it could knock the wind out of you. And I was devastated. I'm like, how can you say this is not of God? How could you? I'm like, did you even listen to the word? Like, I'm not like some, poet or rapper here talking, glorifying like drugs and, sexualizing, objectifying women or something or what, like, are you kidding me? I have the spirit of Cain, a murderer. Do you know who Cain is? Like,
yeah, just because their opinion
I was
what
devastated.
that was is not what they're used to. That's the issue with the world right now. We're seeing it happen right now.
Yeah,
and it's
bro.
interesting because I really wonder, your spirituality, they talk about this in the Bible. What's happening in the world right now.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting and I grew up Catholic, but I kind of have my own like written rule of life, where I mix certain religions together that I take from, you know what I mean? And I just believe in doing the right thing, being good to people, not screwing people over. But if you want to live your life a certain way in certain manners that isn't hurting people, then do that. You know what I mean? Just don't hurt people. But it's just interesting to see what's going on, seeing how the spirituality has been lost in the world.
Yeah.
And for you to say that one comment really kind of almost shut you down.
Yeah.
It's crazy because I can't imagine how many people it actually does happen to. And think about it.
Yeah.
Imagine if the next, who knows, Michael Jordan or whatever puts a video up and somebody says that to them and they shut down, they never play basketball again. You know what I mean?
That's what we would have never had a Michael Jordan that we know today.
Yeah.
Because he
Similar,
had
very similar.
experiences like that, right? Like something like the first couple of tryouts, he didn't make his high school basketball team or something. Like if he would have just been like, I guess my coach does, thinks I'm trash. I guess I am trash. Let me not.
And
Dude,
stopped.
we would never have a Michael Jordan. Like, are
Imagine
you
that.
kidding?
Nobody wearing Jordan sneakers. Where would we be
Dude.
today?
And
wild.
that gives me goosebumps, just chills thinking of that.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference, obviously, between a winner and having that mentality and confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
Now, after that made you feel that way, what happens? Did you shut down? Did you?
Well, I didn't do anything for a minute. I definitely put the pen down for a second and just was like, I kind of did this, self check, because I grew up in this stuff. So I think my first, from just, the initial shock, I think my immediate next step was like, okay, let me take do a self-assessment. Let me, see where I'm at. I'm like, I'm going over, my content and stuff that I write. Like I want to be very intentional and I want to make sure I am, putting out the right message. Right. And, I did all that, I'm like, so I'm like, check. Okay. I don't see where I'm going wrong per se. And I think even after making the decision, all right, I'm going to pick back up the pen and like, you know what? Forget what they said. They clearly don't know what they're talking about. And I think that's why it's important to have that very personal, spiritual relationship with God because, whether it's a non-believer, a hater, or somebody who's literally close to you and actually attends the same church you attend and believes the same faith you believe, when somebody has something adverse to say, and that spirit of God on the inside of you is beckoning you still to that direction, that's when that personal relationship becomes everything. Yeah. And I think having that personal relationship is what kept me, what allowed me to pick the pen back up. So I picked the pen back up, but there was like kind of this, you know, and I don't like to use the word regret, but it was kind of like another small period where I was going to pick the pen back up, but I was going to kind of try to wear this, you know, kind of portray a more, I guess you could say, religiously acceptable appearance.
You're trying to conform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I reflect on that part of like my journey, I don't like that about, you know, because I felt like I wasn't confident enough. Yeah. But, you know, so, you know, anybody who's followed, you know, my journey in the music, in the beginning, you know, I kind of, you know, I was like, I had this like preacher look, you know, kind of merging with, you know, my passion for music and hip hop, you know, so I had like, you know, the clerical preacher minister collar. Yeah. And like, for me, that was like my way of kind of like essentially have a transparent moment and call it what it is, kind of hiding behind the cloth, if you will. Right. Because I had to kind of like hide behind this or wear this for what I've always known to be the community that supported me all my life, to kind of support me in this new journey. Yeah. Like, you guys can't see that I still got the same message. I still have a heart for God, and I still want to, like, you know, be positive in my music and, like, you know, have that message, but it's not going to maybe come in the way that you guys think. But I guess, hey, you guys are the only support I got right now, right? That's kind of like the independent artist journey. Like, until the rest of the world knows who you are, like, your biggest and only support is really your friends and your family, right? So it's kind of like I needed that church community. I needed those people to be my support in the beginning. Yeah. And once I grew and kind of got my footing and was, you know, that confidence grew, it was like, I don't need to hide behind this now. I don't need to. I don't need you guys' permission to be what it is I'm called to be. Yeah. And when you get wild. To that part, oh man, the freedom.
I know a lot of that feeling.
The increased joy. I'm like,
absolutely.
I don't have to look like how you think I should look. Yeah. I don't have like what? I'm still gonna do this, and guess what? Whether you sign up, buy tickets, or show up or not, I'm still gonna do this.
Yeah, and succeed while doing it. Yeah. It's funny you say that now. But what happens now? Did these people start to accept you for who you were, or did they not?
Well, I think it was, you know, the more I became more bold and did, you know, more events and showed up more places and you know, I realized that there's actually more people in my, you know, that faith community who did support that. Yeah. And I realized those naysayers or other people were of the minority. Mm-hmm. So, and good. I think, again, when you're in that babe stage, and I was just putting that first thing out there on YouTube, that person's comment in my mind represented the masses. Yeah. This must be what everybody thinks.
Yeah. I can see that.
And that's the, you know, part that's the lie. Yeah. You know, that actually those naysayer and those haters, most times they're of the minority. There's a lot of people who really do support what it is you're trying to do, support that passion. And it's just, you have to just find them. You have to go to the places they're at. Yeah. You know what I mean? I've been criticized, you know, from, you know, some faith communities or people for me performing and doing my, you know, spoken word or events in bars and pubs. But I'm like, hey, dude,
you can connect anywhere.
If that bar is gonna let me touch a mic and say whatever the heck I want on the mic, hell yeah! Agreed, like, yeah. I'm going. I'm taking the mic. I don't care where the mic is. Like, you know, if you're gonna let me put my message out there on the mic, and you're not gonna try to, you know, contain me or, you know, what do you call censor me? Yeah. Dude, like, absolutely, I'm there.
Take it. I tell people all day long how important it is to connect, and for the longest time, I think when I was in that more introverted place of my life where I didn't feel like I needed anybody else and I could do everything myself because that's what I did forever, yada, yada, yada. I was still doing well, but I was missing out on a lot of things. I didn't realize until that happiness really hit me how important human connection is, which is why I do this, because I love doing this. This brings me an awesome joy, like just talking to people. And when I realized that I like doing that out in everyday life and the conversations I get in with people every single day, I'm like, damn, I wish I had a microphone on me all day. You know
exactly. I mean? Like right now, man.
Shit.
You free? Like, hey, you want to do a podcast?
And that's how I came about doing this. And that's why, like, I tell people, like, listen, you never know what you're good at or what you can do. Try, go learn. But people are spending a lot of their time wasted on doing things. I said the other day, I'm like, you know what? Listen, while I'm trying to build brands and do the things that I want to do and learn and educate myself, while you're watching Netflix, you can't be mad at me. You know what I mean? Wow. You can't hate on me. How are you going to hate on me? When I'm putting in the work and you're over there watching, the whole season of Ozarks.
Stuff in your face.
In one fucking day.
Exactly.
So now you've done some pretty wild things. You said the Apollo Theater.
Yeah.
That was your first big show, you think?
That was like the first big stage. And in the same, probably within 5 or 10 minutes of each other, in New York, the New Yorkers Poets Cafe. It's like the one of the birthplaces of like spoken word or whatever in New York. So that was like the first, and what's like crazy about the Apollo is like how you said, like, if you're not really, confident in yourself or sure that, whatever your passion that you're into, like, that YouTube comment could have like snuffed me out a long time ago. I've had the kind of the privilege to see that phenomenon behind stage, behind that curtain at the Apollo. Because, anybody who watches the Apollo on TV and know that whole like the Sandman, skit and being booed. Yeah. Like that's a make or break stage. Yeah. And I've watched grown men like 40s and their 50s, like been doing their music and what they do for decades, fall apart backstage and throw in the towel. Wow. Like, and say, I'm done, never again. Yeah. And like, for me to see that, it was kind of like a lesson and like an epiphany at the same time for me to go, that's what can happen to you when you are in that either infant stage or like a gentleman like that, where you're maybe not in an infant stage, but yet you just haven't learned that life lesson that you have to be sure and intentional. Those two things, you have to be both sure and you have to be intentional. Like not thinking, like I think a lot of us, we base as like kind of part of our equation of knowing if this is where I should be going. Part of our subconscious equation of determining that is other people's response. And on the one hand, we could all empathize with that. We could understand that. Like that's a human thing. I
guess it's kind of needed.
It's a human thing, yeah. But we have to evolve spiritually on the inside out to a place where we can exclude it from the equation. Right. Because having it as a part of the equation is so dangerous. Because all it takes is a carefully placed, if it's some group of people who are intentionally trying to sabotage your dreams, or a carefully or a mistakenly placed response or commentary from somebody who may be a friend of yours who thinks they're just being a good friend by telling you, hey man, it sounds like a really dope idea, bro, you got, but I don't know, man. I just don't think, there's too many other people doing what you're doing, man. I don't think that's going to be successful. That could be a really good friend, but they mistakenly, they spoke, in a way that they had no clue was going to just kill you in your dream. And they didn't mean that to be that way, but they thought they were doing a good thing. So you got people like that And because it's part of your equation, whether it's subconsciously part of your equation or intentional, you have it snuff you out, and you never know what you could have become. Like how many stories we have of like Bill Gates, I think it is, like who had like what, an old teacher or professor tell him, like when he told him about his idea for Windows, that's a stupid idea.
Yeah.
Or your Steve Jobs, or people who are dropouts. Or
True.
Like these amazing ideas and things we enjoy today would never be what, like the Amazon guy, right? Like somebody told him that idea of thinking that you can ship a package to a whole nother part of the world. Like,
people don't understand this. It takes time. It takes patience. Like
so much.
This brand that I have, the For the Love brand, is I started this years ago. You know what I mean? I wasn't putting the amount of effort that it needed in, because I just didn't understand yet. I wasn't at that place, and you need to be in that spiritual place, like you said. I wasn't there yet. Yeah. So I had the ideas. Yeah. And I was even implementing them. I was still implementing them, but they weren't succeeding because I wasn't in that place, bro. And I swear to you, I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah, man.
And I urge everybody that you have to really understand yourself before you can understand how everything else works.
Yeah, man. And just being honest, honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I think for me to be able to, kind of bear the image or, portray my gift and my passion the way I want, in that freedom, right? That's where the real free, that's where that comes from, right? Be free for real. Like that, it had to first take me admitting, all right, what is this that's making you feel frustrated or paused or afraid? What is it? Because I can't start to work on removing that thing so I can be better and be fearless if I keep lying to myself saying I'm not scared, I'm not afraid. Like, no, I had to face that thing. I had to admit I care about people's opinion of me. I said it. Oh gosh, I wish it wasn't there. I'd really like to wear this really macho, tough, like, I don't what? I'd love for that to be the truth, but you know what? It's not.
The key though is you want the right people to like you. You want the right people to have a good opinion of you.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's where, like, people, you do meet those people where they're like, oh, I don't care what anybody thinks of me, this and that. And let's be real, that's probably really not true. Because you do want the people that are good people to care about you and think good things of you, and that's gonna be on your character. So that's a true statement for sure.
Yeah, man.
But you've done some other big things. You're a world record holder. Is this true?
Yeah, man. I just garnered the official world record for longest written alliteration with my new poem book, my first ever book.
You have that? Show them that.
Yeah, man. Got that there. Okay. And this is one of my proof copies. I probably had like 5 proof copies, like to samples and things, books sent out to me so I could critique and edit and change things and see what it looks like in my hand, because the way that stuff looks on the screen and your computer might be one way, and I'm really just meticulous like that. Being a creator at heart myself, every single aspect of the creative process, like I'm like super
OCD with that.
OCD about so that was a really another just big milestone in just my journey, like just being a trying to move into just being a bona fide writer,
and constantly progressing.
Like I'm realizing like that's the actual gift or passion behind all the other things. Like, so behind the poetry, behind the music, behind that is just a writer. Like that's what your rappers, your Kendrick Lamars, your Common, your Nas, those people like in hip hop that we know as like awesome lyricists, they're a writer. Your Tupac's writer. You know what I mean? Like, these are people who have something to say, and they just, at time or whatever in their journey, chose to say it through song or say it through poetry. So I'm now, kind of like refining and discovering like more of those aspects and things of what that looks like. And it's fun because it's something that keeps my mind occupied and from like being like mundane and like, like how you said, being stuck in front of a TV or watching more of the bad news. Like there's literally almost nothing good on the news. Like, so I'm one of those people that like, I literally like somebody will ask me like, hey man, you heard of that show, or you got to catch this show. And I'm like, I don't know. No, I haven't heard of it. Like I'm not caught up on the latest anything on TV just because, dude, I'm busy creating. Like I love,
same.
That's what makes,
same.
That's what's my pastime. And if I could, dude, that's the holy grail. If you can have your pastime, the thing that you just will do almost mindlessly, like without effort, and like just do all the time and can do for hours and not feel like you broke one sweat, and you can make a living from that.
Absolutely.
That's the gold.
Absolutely. I think everybody wants that, and I think people, that's where those haters come in. They see you getting that. And that's a dream of everybody, I think. Let's be realistic. Nobody wants to do the 9 to 5 forever.
Nah.
And so they see people living their dreams, and that's where the jealousy and all that other stuff comes in. You got to let that go. I always say this. Connect with those people. If you see people doing what you want to do, find out how they're doing it. Go talk to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I told somebody, well, I had somebody, we were talking about like just that like idea of like the grass being greener on the other side or whatever. And you can have that feeling of like wanting, like envying, like almost like coveting that person's green grass.
Right.
Or you could have the mindset that says, you know what? Let me walk across the street and ask that dude, what is he using on his grass?
Yeah.
100%. So
100%.
I'm one that, tries to, look at the glass half full, look at where I could be in a position of being empowered versus feeling powerless and helpless and like, hey, everybody else and all those guys are going to have the life that I want or be able to do the cool things that I aspire to do. And that's just not for me. I'm never going to be able to have that, So that's been the mindset that's like over and over again, though, has like pushed me to step out and try that thing that somebody else would be like, dude, that's taking a chance or that's risky or who are you? Like, what are you going to like literally like the first time, and that's I think that's my biggest testimony to anybody who's in that creative space or they're struggling inside still to make that decision for their life, and you're like, hey, I'm not sure if I should do this because the odds of that manifesting or turning into something bigger for me are slim, or I don't know if that's probably not even going to go anywhere. Listen, my first time being invited out of the country to go from just a local artist to now international artist came from me taking a chance, booking a flight from Connecticut to Georgia to a small event to perform. And at that event, in the audience, was a music event manager, coordinator from England in the audience. And right after that performance, met me in the lobby and on the spot said, hey, it's short notice, but at the end of this month, can you make it to England?
Wow. That's awesome.
And went, again, local artists, independent. I'm like, I don't got no label, big money behind me. I just freaking left my 6-figure paying job. I'm making peanuts to book a flight to England. Like, that's not cheap. Again, rolling the dice, figuring it out, trying to, crowdfund a little bit, finally invest in that chance. Again, this is just this chance, but this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I like to do. Get there. Guess who's in that audience? My next handshake and band that the next year invites me to go on tour to Switzerland, France, and Germany.
Wow. That's great.
Like this is taking that chance on what you love and it's not going to be easy. You are going to be scared out of your brain at times. Yes. But if you don't try, you will never. If Michael Jordan didn't try out just one more time, we would not have a Jordan.
Yeah, you're right. Do you think that fear kind of went away in you? Kind of like, I mean, myself, when I found happiness, like true happiness, I think that elevates a lot of the boldness and just good emotions in your life, confidence, all these things. Yeah. And I think that fear starts to dwindle more and more as those other emotions start to elevate.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think now what it, I don't know what movie I saw it on. I think it was a movie, but now it's not like when I say now, I'm talking about when it's me trying a new thing with my talent. So like, doing the book, like that was a new thing. The writing isn't new. Like it's still poetry. So but doing the legwork and putting a book out there, researching how to do a book, that was new. So now it's not so much as a fear. Now it's just, like I said, I don't know where I heard it from, but it's like a heightened sense of things.
Yes.
So it's not fear, but I do feel this emotion that this is something different. And so all of my senses are peaked.
Right.
This is not fear at work, but I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah.
My pupils are dilated. My eyes are wide open. You know what I mean?
You need to be a little more focused.
Yeah. And so you have that heightened sense, like,
absolutely feel
yeah. So I'm going to do this thing, even though it's a new phase. Yeah. I got to do it because my history now, because now that I got some years behind me in going in this direction, my history now is proof that any other time you were doing something new and you stepped out and were courageous and did it anyway. Yeah. Look what's happened. Exactly. It's always led to something better, another plateau that you never reached before.
I feel the same, man. Like every time I was ever in a hard situation in my life, I always said to myself, I think this is why I am where I am now, and I've been through a lot, is because I said to myself, I have no other choice. You know what I mean? That's just what I say to myself. I'm like, I just weigh the options. I'm like, it's either this or it's this. There's no in between, nothing. Yeah. It's either this or this. Which one do I want more?
Can't be lukewarm.
You know what I mean? And that's it. I have no choice. So this is what I'm doing. You know what I mean? But listen, man, episode 25, I'm super proud of you, bro. Like, to see 14 years pass by, see you take a risk that has now turned into happiness that most people don't even find in their life. Yeah, man. That's why I bring people like you on here, so that you can motivate others, help them understand that, listen, this can happen to you too. You can achieve what anybody else is doing. Anything. And you have your own talents. You have to find that, and hopefully we're here to help you. But I want to leave off with a track. This is one of your newest tracks, right?
Yep, just released.
So introduce that and give them your social media so that they can find you, and then we'll get into the track.
So this track is called Finally Free, telling for just my journey. Finally Free, that's FRII, produced by Track Major Productions. Now streaming on iTunes, Spotify. You can find me everywhere on social media. Made it real super easy for you guys at The Real Frii, literally everywhere. Again, that's The Real FRII. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Nice.
What else is out there? These kids are using anything. I got
anything and everything.
TikTok,
search that. Everything. The Real Frii.
The Real Frii, man.
So we'll get into the track, man. Again, thanks for coming on. Hope to have you again soon, and we'll catch up and see where you're at, man.
Yeah.
Take care.
Peace. Yeah. It's free. That time, finally free. Not a drummer, but I keep a set of sticks. I call them verse and lyric. And they ain't never beat a bass or a snare drum. But I put these boys to work and they hauling off on your eardrum. Bringing the dinner bell, it's red rum and breadcrumb. Say the game me the real one, they'll find it in me. Cause the real one died, now I'm finally free. But I swear this man is alive, I can feel him in me. You cannot keep a king buried, I'm finally free. Rap game in a chokehold, don't you doze, don't fall asleep. Chains broken in tempo, I want all the world to finally see. They went from hating to taunting to chasing, now they ducking me. Mad at me, but I'm not guilty, I'm just fulfilling prophecy. Overlooking and shunning me, paved the way for me perfectly. Honestly, I would probably be salty with all the mockery. Fortunately, my heavenly father worked it out perfectly. Skullcap, pin dubs, all black, buried and buried, hold me so purposely. Irony, holy of holy, got his hands, but he literally paying my debt off with a manger full of blood money. Beautiful, ugly nativity, cutting ties and strings from anybody who won't speak but talk dummy. Prepare the table with the enemy grilling me, I ain't sweating y'all. Lazarus, I was told to get up, I answered the call. I'm shaking the gravel off, forgive me for the dirt, I'm about to drop on your tablecloths. They say they gave me the real one, they'll find it in me. Because the real one died, now I'm finally free. But I swear this man is alive, I can feel him in me. You cannot keep a king buried, I'm finally free. Say they gave me the real one, they'll find it in me. Because the real one died, now I'm finally free. But I swear this man is alive, I can feel him in me. You cannot keep a king buried, I'm finally free. Ass black men in the presence of the sun, asthma attack. Smoke from a living sacrifice, filling your lung. You was there when they rolled the rock, you thought my rock and roll was done. Now you sucking your teeth and rolling out. I'm just having fun, no time for the D-O-U-B-T. Or to play with the king of RPG. Shot down every lie with the RPG. Make way for the king, got a tambourine. The haters saw the funeral turn into a festivity. Enemy look worried, you can't keep a king buried. They say they gave me the real one, they'll find it in me. Because the real one died, now I'm finally free. But I swear this man is alive, I can feel him in me. You cannot keep a king buried, I'm finally free. Back, I was pinning, you was patrolling, scratch that. To be honest, I was pinning, you was just pacing forth. Back in the crowd, contemplating how you gon' get some get. Back in the line, back of me is where you belong at. Praying all day and night, wearing out my knee. Cap to the right of red borders on blue lines where he met my knee at. Haters saw the funeral turn into a festivity. Enemy look worried, you can't keep a king buried. They say they gave me the real one, they'll find it in me. Because the real one died, now I'm finally free. But I swear this man is alive, I can feel him in me. You cannot keep a king buried, I'm finally free.
you